Hello, you're welcome along to the Matchbook Football Betting Podcast. It's Daniel Hussey here, standing in for Sully this week, and I'm delighted to be joined by the dynamic duo that I've learned a lot personally from listening to the podcast for the last few weeks behind the scenes, Adrian, Clarke, and Mark O'Hare. Guys, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thanks, Daniel. It's a nice introduction.
Yeah, hello. Yeah, good to have you on. Yeah. Yeah, no, we do our best. We don't always get it right, but we do always try hard.
I'm saying all the right things, Adrian. But you say you don't always get it right, but we were just talking off air there. We went 4-0 with the Premier League picks last week, and Adrian, you gave a good shout out. If you want to rattle through some of those picks, it's nice to shout about the winners now and again.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, let's not be too shy about it. Yeah, I was really pleased with the Villa game, Villa Brighton unders. We went, didn't we, with 2.5, and obviously it was nailed on really throughout that contest. It was only at the end where Villa scored 2 late goals, you started to get sort of shift a bit uncomfortably in our seats. Chelsea and under 4.5 it's a no-brainer, isn't it? At the moment, it's crazy, and look, it hurt me to tip up Liverpool plus, Liverpool with over 1.5 goals against Arsenal, but yeah, truth is, you could have backed Liverpool and plus, 3.5 or more goals, and you'd have been fairly confident, because that's what always seems to happen when Arsenal go to Anfield. So it was a great week for us.
Yeah, I bang the Arsenal drum behind the scenes, being an Arsenal fan, Adrian, but you don't let that cloud your judgment, to be fair to you, and that's something that impresses me anyway. But Mark O'Hare, again, your European Insights column is, I think, 9 out of the last 10 winners. It's something again to shout about.
Yeah, positive variance is always good. Always waiting for it to bite back and hurt me at some point. And I definitely did ride it on Monday night with the Verona game, at the third goal arriving in stoppage time. But you've got to take those wins when they come, because no doubt at some point soon I'll be getting a stoppage time goal going against me in some way or form. So yeah, I mean, it's great. And I've filed my Insights column on Thursday morning, and it's got a familiar theme to recent weeks as well. So hopefully the train will keep on running.
Yeah, Serie A and Bundesliga, and that'll be up later on insights.matchbook.com, where, of course, you can get recaps of all the best bets that Mark and Adrian put up here. And if you are watching us on YouTube, do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Give us a thumbs up. We'd really appreciate it. And for those listening on the podcast app, if you do leave us a provincial review, that also would be appreciated. So let's get on to the big game. And there's so many talking points just from these two teams alone. I'll go to you first, Adrian, once we take a look at the betting here. So this is Chelsea versus Manchester United. And the latest odds on Matchbook, Chelsea are 1.62, with Manchester United 6.2. You look at that initially thinking it's possibly a big price. Draw is 4.2. The Asian handicap, Chelsea have a -1 goal at 2.06, with Manchester United plus 1.0 at 1.88. And the total is over 2.5/3.0 at 204, with unders at 1.88. Adrian, Clarke, I don't want to spoil your selection, but you nearly gave it away at the start after last week's pick, but you're going to the well again with Chelsea and the unders.
Yeah, I think you have to. Difficult game to call in some respects, because of what will Manchester United produce. They were obviously in a shambolic state under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. This would have been, I think you'd been looking at more of a Chelsea and over 2.5 goals if it was maybe Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in charge. But Michael Carrick came in and did a good job, didn't he, against Villarreal? That was a professional performance, really sort of well organised and quite disciplined. So he'll do the same, won't he, at Stamford Bridge? It'll be about keeping things tight, asking his wide players to be really hardworking and diligent. And there was praise, wasn't there, for Jadon Sancho doing that in the game from Carrick. So yeah, I think United will go there with a cautious attitude. These two games finished 0-0 last season, so they've got previous of going to Stamford Bridge and doing well. I think their record at Stamford Bridge, actually, Manchester United, is outstanding. So that gives them a chance of being competitive. All of those factors put together, but then you look at Chelsea, and then you look at how imperious they are at the back. 4 goals conceded in the Premier League so far this season. Reece James just looking like an absolute world beater, and they swatted Juve aside just as they did Leicester the other day. My only worry is that those performances against Leicester and Juve were so good that can they go to the well and produce a third successive quality performance in a week? That's the one little question mark nagging away at me. But I can't back against Chelsea. You can't here. you can't look beyond what United did at Watford and think, well, suddenly in the space of a week they're going to rock up at Stamford Bridge and win. I mean, I just can't see that. So for me, Chelsea to win is a bit too short on its own. Chelsea and under 4.5 goals at just under evens is a very good price, in my opinion. Little stat for you as well on Ronaldo, who would obviously be the chief danger man for Chelsea. Only scored once against Chelsea in 15 appearances. That wasn't a Champions League final, but a bit of a bogey team for him, Chelsea. So, yeah, will he get much service in this game? I'm not entirely sure. So, yeah, for me, Chelsea and under 4.5.
I'm amazed at that Ronaldo stat. 1 in 15.
That's what I read. Yeah.
Yeah. Mark, for you, I've always kind of wondered this. So for those like not regular listeners, Mark's been banging the Chelsea and unders drum for a long time. Like, how long can you keep this going before the market kind of catches up and the price becomes too short? Or do you still think that there's huge value in, as Adrian says, just under evens for Chelsea and under 4.5?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question, and it's a really interesting conundrum coming into this game because, hand on heart, if we were here just talking about match odds and the general Asian handicap, I would say no bet for me here. If so, you'd have to back Man United because Chelsea are no value at the price. Over the past 4 seasons, I looked at Chelsea's average home price against Big Six teams, 2.54, and the shortest they've been in that time was 1.74, which was against Arsenal in January 2020, I think it was. They drew the game 2-2. And let's be honest, Arsenal aren't really considered part of the Premier League elite right now, or they weren't in that time at all. So you look at, I appreciate this is without crowds and last season, but Chelsea went off at a bigger price at home to Everton, Brighton and Leicester under Thomas Tuchel as well. So you can't hand on your heart say that 1.62 price on Chelsea is value. However, there are ways in which you can engineer a value price, and that is by chucking in the unders because it has been so consistent, and we know how good Chelsea are defensively and how good Chelsea's control of games has been. Even against Leicester last week, just steaming into a 2-goal lead. Yeah, they could have won the game by 5 or 6, but they still sort of kept control and a grip on the game, just as they did against Juventus too. And Thomas Tuchel's now taken charge of 50 games. They've won 35 of those. They've conceded just 24 goals, which I'm led to believe is a record for a new British manager coming in, or a new manager coming into a British club. But if you combine their Premier League and their Champions League records this season, 17 games, they've conceded 3 goals that weren't penalties. That's 3 goals in 26 hours of football, or almost anyway. It's just astonishing, really. And Kante and Chilwell will probably be missing out this week, but they've got such a deep squad. They're so able to sort of just swap players in and perform without them anyway. They survived without Lukaku and Werner. Both are back now this week as well, so they'll be stronger for that. And United come here without Harry Maguire, who, for all his issues, I thought he was reasonably solid in midweek, but they're missing Varane as well, of course. And you look at he's missed 4 of the last 5 league games. That was 4-2 loss against Leicester, 5-0 against Liverpool, 2-0 against City, 4-1 against Watford. The game he played, they won 3-0 against Spurs. Obviously, small samples, can't read too much into it. But when Varane and Maguire are missing, I do worry about United because they've only kept 3 clean sheets in the last 26 games. Midweek, I thought, there was an improvement there, certainly in terms of organisation and a plan. However, you have to say David De Gea was still probably Man United's man of the match with some really important saves as well. So I don't think they're a completely different animal to what we saw last week just yet. But I'm interested to see how they do set up and how they take to this match. So I think you can still squeeze in a bit more value by adding in Chelsea and under 4.5 goals. Only 3 of Tuchel's 50 games with Chelsea have gone over 4.5. Can we really see this being a 3-2, a 4-1, or a 5-0? Probably not. So I expect Chelsea to be too strong for United.
Yeah, just once this season on that as well. The Norwich game where they battered them 7-0. That's the only game that we've seen more than 4 goals in a match involving Chelsea. So yeah, I think this is a good shout.
Yeah, and even those stats, Mark, like that West Brom 5-2 home performance is such an outlier in the amount of goals. I can see how good would that record look now without that result, and that was obviously played behind closed doors. But yeah, I think we're going to lock that in, guys. At Chelsea and under 4.5 at 1.98. It's hard to argue that that's not value. So before we move on to Manchester City versus West Ham, we're just going to tell you a little bit about Matchbook's latest sign-up offer. So for those people that haven't got a Matchbook account that would like to potentially or are interested in betting on the exchange, we have a really good £15 welcome offer. So this is money back as cash if your first bet loses. So if you want to put the £15 in one of maybe Chelsea under 4.5 goals. It's money back as cash. If your first bet loses, all you have to do is enter the bonus code INSIGHTSORF. That's INSIGHTSORF. And full terms and conditions are available on the Matchbook Betting Exchange website. We move on to Manchester City versus West Ham. I was trying to decide maybe what was the second biggest game. And after a while, I was like, how took me so long to realize Manchester City versus West Ham, guys? But we'll get to it in a second once we take a look at the odds. So Manchester City are 1.33. West Ham are 10.5, the latest betting odds, and draws the 5.9. Adrian handicap Manchester City with a 1.5 goal start at 1.9, and West Ham plus 1.5 at 2.04, and the total is 3.0, with the overs shading at 1.84 and the unders at 2.08. Yeah, Mark, we'll go to you for this. Like, it obviously is like the second biggest game of the weekend, given West Ham started the season, albeit last weekend's result. But again, you're kind of looking at Manchester City and seeing a small bit of those same tendencies you see in Chelsea, given your bet selection here.
Yeah, I did find this quite difficult, actually. I actually find all Man City matches quite difficult because they're so heavily favoured in the market. And, it's hard to disagree with what the market suggests. There was a lot of money for them ahead of the PSG game. And, that was understandable, really, considering how they performed, despite having no Kevin De Bruyne, no Jack Grealish. They were absolutely superb yet again. Superb in Paris, didn't get the result. Superb at the Etihad and got the result. And you look at their price of 1.33 at home to West Ham. It is short, but they were 1.36 against Arsenal earlier in the season. So the market kind of knows what to expect from City. And I think despite, missing quite a few key players across the past couple of weeks, couple of months, they've still managed to sort of churn out these consistently strong performances. There's been a few outliers, of course, but overall, they have been pretty exceptional, especially in the matches that matter. So from a West Ham perspective, you'd probably hope that there was a bit of fatigue in the squad, considering they had to play PSG in the Champions League, a big tie. Plus, there's a full midweek round of Premier League fixtures on the horizon as well. So there might be a bit of rest and rotation from City's perspective. However, that kind of is counteracted by West Ham playing in Vienna on Thursday night, eating into their own recovery and preparation time too. So they weren't great at Wolves last weekend, it must be said. And I think for all the huge positives around David Moyes and the upward trajectory they've taken since he's returned, I think it's worth acknowledging too that their schedule has been okay in terms of the Premier League so far this season. Liverpool, Spurs, United and Leicester at home have been the toughest games they've had to play. Now, Spurs, United and Leicester have all fallen below expectations, and Liverpool have been very, very good, but West Ham benefited from a few errors in that game as well. They were excellent. I can't deny that, but you have to take into account those errors too. So this is a big test. I don't put huge emphasis on the League Cup game between the two. The size will be very different on Sunday, but I am hopeful West Ham can be competitive at the Etihad. They're not quite good enough to be in the top 4 conversation for me, but certainly the top 6 is within reach. But I think, this is going to be an interesting barometer just to see how far they really have come. And can they actually be considered in that top 4 bracket or challenging for the top 4? But yeah, I found it difficult. So in terms of a bet, I just went back to the same selection as the Chelsea angle. So City to win and under 4.5 goals, which is north of 1.8. It's never a comfortable watch when you're opposing goals in a Man City game, regardless of what line you take. So we got burned against Brighton earlier in the season when they ran out 4-1 winners, a last-minute goal kind of going against us. But if I'm being brutally honest, it's not a game I'd have a really strong view or a strong selection on. However, this looked the better option of what's available.
Yeah, Adrian, for you, and I guess watching that Man City PSG game, it was an absorbing encounter. I always find those games fascinating, just the quality of both teams. And I know PSG for large spells were dominated, but would that have taken a lot out of Manchester City, leaving that Europa League game aside for West Ham?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, emotionally, quite draining because you have to think so quickly in those games against the very best teams. Everything's that little bit sharper. So, yeah, it would have taken its toll. They'll be feeling it this morning, I'm sure. But it was a sensational team performance. It really was. I thought they were just sublime and just stars all over the pitch for me in the game. It'll be interesting to see who does get rested and rotated for this one. Not that much more to add really to what Mark said. He covered most things. City are imperious. They concede very, very few goals. I co-commentated on this fixture last year, and West Ham were really competitive actually, and they gave Manchester City a few frights up front. Mikel Antonio scored in the game, and it was a narrow defeat for West Ham. He scored in the last 2 against them. So he's a player, and he's rested, isn't he, for the game in Vienna? He's not travelled. So that he'll come into this fresh with the knowledge that he's caused City problems in the past. So that's a little thing there for Manchester City to keep them interested. I think they'll respect West Ham United. But when you see them control a match as elegantly as they did against PSG, you think, well, surely they're going to do the same against the West Ham team that were really flat, weren't they, against Wolves last weekend? So I was half tempted here by West Ham on the handicap, because this is a good team that don't get battered very often. They really don't. They stay in games. They recently beat Liverpool. They are capable of making a good fist of it against anyone, I think. So West Ham plus 1 3/4 goals was appealing. I think it came in at just over 1.8. But then I thought, no, this is Man City. And then I saw the game against PSG, and I changed my mind. I was like, well, if they play like this against the Hammers, that they're winning it canter. So, yeah, my pick, coincidentally, was exactly the same as Mark's. City and under 4.5 goals.
Okay, so that's currently priced at 1.83 on Matchbook. We'll lock it in as a pick. Maybe not as strong as the Chelsea and unders, but maybe City and unders will start catching on the longer the season goes, and maybe Pep starts winding it down the last 20 minutes in these games. But yeah, so a broad agreement so far with the guys in the first 2 Premier League games. We move on to match 3, which is Leicester City versus Watford. And we'll take a look at the latest betting on Matchbook.com. So Leicester are 1.68. Short enough price, you think, considering their form recently. Watford available at 5.7, and the draw is 4.1. We look at the Asian handicap, Leicester minus 0 3/4 goals. On side on Matchbook, that would be minus 0.5/1.0 at 1.86. With Watford, the plus at 2.08. And the overs totals is 1.87 over 2.5/3.0. And the unders is available at 2.04. We'll go to you for this, Mark. As I said, like Leicester's form recently, like I know as an Arsenal fan, watching Arsenal beat Leicester away, I was like, what an absolutely incredible performance. But the longer we go on, I start looking at that going, I think that was more Leicester than Arsenal, and Leicester did dominate Arsenal for the rest of the game. But I'll try not to talk about Arsenal again. Yeah, thanks, Adrian. Yeah, but for you, Mark, what's your kind of thoughts on Leicester and maybe this game here at home to Watford?
Yeah, I'm quite anti-Leicester, and I have been for most of the season, because I think they have fallen way below the standards that they've set in the past 2 seasons. Really interesting match this. I'm quite excited by it. Obviously, Claudio Ranieri going back to Leicester, but from a neutral perspective, I guess there's a feeling of almost unknown about the match too, because Watford have been pretty much feast or famine so far this season. We just don't really know which Watford are going to turn up, because they failed to score in 7 of their 12 Premier League games since promotion. However, they've scored 3 or more goals in 4 of the other 5. So, it's quite outrageous, really. But under Ranieri, they've produced that excellent effort against Man United last week, where they were so energetic, so intense, so expansive, and really, really impressed. And they also scored 5 goals away at Everton under his tutorship too. So, they're not going to be, worried about going to Leicester the way Leicester have been playing so far this season. I think, Sarr came off last week. By all accounts, it sounds like it was more of a precaution than a major injury. So he's been a real star despite those penalty misses, and I think he'll be key for them here. They are still missing Kukovo in midfield. He does add a bit of bite to that midfield, and I think it does leave them a little bit weaker there. But I expect a front foot approach from Watford, because I know all about Leicester's weaknesses, and I think this is a Leicester team in Europa League action on Thursday night, and a Leicester team that's, as I said, falling below expectations, because if you look at expected points based off expected goals, outcomes or outputs, it paints a really difficult story for Leicester so far this season. They're effectively 4 points better off than they should be based on their performances and on the underlying data. I've got them ranked 17th on expected points. And actually, if you took their actual points and took those 4 points off their tally, they'd be down towards the bottom 3 alongside Leeds. You look at some of those games, particularly the opening day against Wolves, where they got a victory when they were nowhere near the better team. Things have fallen in their favour a few times so far this season. But ultimately, it's just 4 wins from 12. They've lost the non-penalty expected goals battle in 9 of those 12 games. They've been outshot on 8 occasions. And they've kept 2 clean sheets in 18 across all competitions. Wolves on the opening day and Millwall in the Cup. So go further back. It's 3 clean sheets in 27 Premier League games, 2 of which were against relegated teams. And Ndidi came back into the team last week, which I thought was going to be a plus, but he looked way off the pace. Evans has been hobbling around for a while now. Things really aren't functioning in that midfield. It's only really further forward where they've got the options to hurt teams. So And yeah, I said last week that I don't really want to sort of oppose Leicester ever scoring a goal because they've got so much quality in that final third. But I look at this game and I could just see goals. There has to be goals. The goal line is set pretty high at 2 3/4, but both teams to score 1.74, 1.75. That's absolutely fine for me. I'm really quite keen on that. Both teams together have managed just one clean sheet this season. Leicester have gone over 2.5 goals in 8 of 12 games. Further back, they've gone overs in 20 of 27. I mentioned Watford's kind of erratic goal scoring patterns so far this season. It's the same, obviously, with their goals per game output. They've seen over 2.5 in only 5 of 12, but those 5 also went over 3.5 as well. So, if there's going to be goals, there tends to be quite a few in Watford games, or not really at all. So I think just the way Leicester are playing, the pressure is on them to be offensive, play forward, thinking football, and try and get a win and sort of ease some pressure on Brendan Rodgers, because there were some boos last weekend. And I think, we've got Watford will be licking their lips at the prospect. So, I think both teams to score is a great price.
Yeah, currently available at 1.74. Adrian, for you on the Leicester side of things, like Brendan Rodgers, it can't really be helping this Manchester United speculation. And I know he's definitely probably frustrated that once the United job becomes available, he's probably in his worst possible spell with Leicester at the moment.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, you'd be interested, Penny, for his thoughts really on the inside. But yeah, it's not going well, is it, at the moment for him? Something's not quite right at Leicester City this season. I think it's to do with defensive stability. Obviously, they lost Fofana, and Didi's not really been fully fit at any stage this season, and Evans is sort of hobbling through games as well. So that doesn't help. And I think that because they're wobbly, it's impacted on their confidence and their sort of swagger as a team in general. So yeah, this is a match you'd ordinarily expect them to win a canter, but you can't fancy Leicester at the moment, not with their home form. Only really played well against Manchester United at home. The other home games have been very indifferent. Their home games averaged 3.38 goals, which is obviously a lot. Both teams have scored in 3/4 of the matches at the King Power Stadium in the Premier League so far this season as well. So, yeah, BTTS is a really strong player here. Watford haven't kept a clean sheet, and you wouldn't back them to keep a clean sheet here, would you? You just wouldn't. And but I can't. The way Leicester are defending, I can't see them keeping the opposition at bay either. I don't know who's going to win the game, but I definitely feel there could be goals, and it'd be a great sort of narrative, good story. It'd be lovely for Ranieri, actually, wouldn't it, for him to go to the King Power, get a hero's welcome, I'm sure, and then turn them over because he was sacked quite brutally, having guided them to the greatest fairy tale in sporting history. He was dispensed with very, very quickly. So make no mistake, he'll be eager to win this game. He'll have swatted up on Leicester's weaknesses, set plays. Watford have got some big guys. They'll pepper them from corners and wide free kicks. They'll crowd around that 6-yard box and cause them problems. And they'll squeeze and they'll press, because Leicester keep on trying to play out from the back and they keep on fluffing their lines. And as Watford showed against Manchester United, they're pretty good when they hustle, when they're aggressive. They've got real power and pace from the transitions with Sarr and Dennis and Josh King. So yeah, I see goals. So yeah, I'm copying Mark's bet here. We're fully aligned so far, aren't we? 3 out of 3, but it's just the way I see it.
It's making my job a lot easier to pick the podcast bet, guys. So you keep the agreements coming. For both teams to score, we're going to lock that in a Leicester versus Watford at 1.74, and it's very hard to argue there, given the case it's made for both Leicester's defence and Watford going forward. So yeah, both teams to score at 1.74. We'll pick a Saturday game, and we were kind of under pressure, weren't we, in the WhatsApp to pick a Saturday game? So we went with Brighton versus Leeds at 5:30, I think it is. And we'll just take a look at the betting here. So Brighton are available at 2.14. Leeds, who's struggling this season, at 3.9, and the draw is available at 3.5. We move on to the Asian handicap, and Brighton are -0.5 at 2.1, with Leeds plus a half a goal start on 1.85. And the total nice easy one at over 2.5 is 1.96, with the same odds for the under. So the goal line spot on at 2.5. Brighton Leeds, will go to you for this, Adrian. And yeah, like looking when this game was picked, I was thinking there's probably a Brighton angle here, but you kind of you're liking Leeds here in this spot.
I am, yeah. We might differ on this one, myself and Mark. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what Mark's thinking, but yeah, for me, I rate both managers. I think that Graham Potter and Marcelo Bielsa are outstanding at what they do. Brighton did get the best. Potter got the better of Bielsa last season with a double, actually. So if you're looking at that matchup, you would favour Brighton. But for me, they're starting to flatter to deceive again. They've not won Brighton since the 19th of September, which is a long time ago. And a lot of draws chucked in there. They've not created anywhere near enough chances. I was looking at the expected goals excluding penalties, and they've got the second lowest, Brighton. Only expected to score 11 goals outside of penalties. They've only got 7 in open play all season. Only Norwich have got fewer. So their goal threat, the Seagulls, is not what it should be for a team that's in the top half. They're very reliant on sort of the tactical acumen of Potter and their quality defending as a team, because they do smother teams. They're really hard to play against Brighton. Villa got there, didn't they, in the end last weekend after a really sort of tight game that Brighton controlled. And then if I flip it around to Leeds, I just thought they were really good against Spurs. I just was very impressed. For the first half, they should have battered them. They were on fire, and that was without a lot of key players that are going to be fit and available, I believe. I haven't seen the latest press conference, but the noises coming out of Leeds that Rafinha, Rodrigo would be back, and that Bamford and Robin Koch would also be available for this game. Now, that's some boost, I think, on the back of a creditable narrow loss at Spurs. So, yeah, I just felt that Leeds started to look more like their old selves at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And they've been in every game. Obviously, the league table's doesn't make good reading for Leeds fans. They've not really been battered. I think Liverpool beat them heavily, as did Manchester United. But the rest of the games, I think the other 10 games, there's been 1 goal in it either way. So Leeds aren't as bad as their position suggests. They're coming into a bit of form. I think they can get something at Brighton. I'm not saying they're going to win the game, but when I can get them on the handicap at sort of, upwards of 1.85, 1.86, 1.87, that appeals to me. So either a Leeds win or a draw, and we're in the money. So that's where I'm going here, because Brighton are not in convincing form.
Yeah, that stat, like having won since the middle of September, is kind of started. And for you, Mark, you're kind of staying away from the result here, and you're going for a goals angle here.
Yeah, I think originally when I looked at the prices, I was drawn towards Brighton of being sort of 2.15. I thought that was quite nice. But as Adrian outlines, 0 wins in 7 now in the Premier League, 5 of which were drawn. And the way in which they're playing was not concerning, but it doesn't sort of lend itself to backing a team to win the game. So I looked at Brighton -1/4 even, and then you're sort of getting the similar price to what Leeds are +0.5. So I just thought I'm happy to leave it and go down as the goals route, because Brighton were poor in possession last week at Aston Villa. It's 64% of the ball, only managed 6 shots and 0.2 XG in that match. But there's been a bit of a trend in how they're playing at the moment, and when Trossard is playing the false 9 against teams like Liverpool and City, who give them a bit more freedom in transitions, he's been really quite effective. But when teams sort of drop deep and play quite compact, they've had problems. I don't think Potter will have that problem this week, because we know what Leeds are like. They will give you opportunities in counter-attacks, transitions when possession is turned over. And I think Potter will quite fancy his opportunity here to get 3 points on the board. Adrian mentioned Brighton doing the double over Leeds last season. Only Brighton, West Ham and Wolves achieved that last year. So he might have something over Bielsa. And also, he'll probably look back on that Villa game. He took Lamptey and Cucurella off when they're probably being, one of Brighton's key threats down the flanks against Villa, and they sort of regressed thereafter and lost the game late on. So he's got a point to prove here. His record against bottom half teams so far this season is strong: 4 wins, 2 draws, just the 1 defeat. So I think there's a lot to like about Brighton, but just in the final third, you do have to have a bit of concern about their total output. And I think you might need to score twice to beat this Leeds team. They will give you opportunities. They've only kept 1 clean sheet all season, and they are sort of top 6 in terms of XG, shots on target conceded as well. So they will give you opportunities, but it's about Brighton being clinical enough to take those opportunities. However, I was impressed with Leeds at Spurs last week. I thought they were very good in that first half and kind of blew themselves out a little bit by being, in that second half when they ran out of gas, and the squad's been looking very thin. You look at the bench and there's just a load of kids basically at the moment. But those players coming back into the fold will make a big difference, particularly Rafinha. with him, Leeds are such a different team going forward. They've actually scored in 20 of their 25 away games since promotion to the Premier League. They've scored in 10 of 12 games so far this season as well. So, yeah, I think just happy enough to take both teams to score here at kind of north of 1.8. I looked at both teams' respective home and away records since the start of last season, which includes obviously behind closed doors matches. And they've both got a 56% hit rate for BTTS. And I just think I expect Brighton to score, but I also expect Leeds to score. So I had sort of BTTS priced around 1.7. So I think anything from 1.8 and above is fair enough.
Yeah. For you, Adrian, your thoughts on that? Both teams to score potentially to play? Or?
It's a player. It's a definite runner. Yeah, it's a pick 'em, isn't it? Yeah, I can see the argument in both. Look, Dan, you're in the hot seat. This is your first pressure moment. I'm not going to take offence if you go with Mark, but look, let's see what you come up with. I'm sure Sully's watching this and enjoying himself. He's watching you squirm.
Yeah. I'm going to go with the both teams to score angle because I think that also allows.
You're out of order.
You promised me. We're gonna lock it in at 1.81 because Adrian made a great case about Leeds and their improving form, but I think Mark's convinced me enough that there is a goal or two in Brighton. So we'll lock that in at 1.81. Both teams to score, Brighton versus Leeds, 5:30 on Saturday. So looking forward to that. Adrian, I'll make it up to you. I'll allow you now to have the floor for your EFL bets and your public selection, starting with like a consolation prize, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. I'll start. I'll go backwards if that's all right. I'll start in League Two with Tranmere against Stevenage. I'm going to pick Tranmere to beat my former club. Stevenage, managerless at the moment, and they drew 2-2 at Rochdale in the week. But one of the most amazing stats came out of the game, and that was that Rochdale had an expected goals of just shy of 5, 4.9 XG, which is pretty much unheard of. They absolutely peppered the Stevenage goal, and it has to go down as one of the sort of most fortuitous points ever accrued, I think, from their point of view. And that's kind of a pattern with Stevenage away from home. I rattle off how many they've let in the last 4 games: 2, 5, 3, and 3. So that's not great when you head to Prenton Park, which is a difficult place to go. Tranmere are a better team than Stevenage. Not full of goals, I must admit that they've been a bit shot shy this season, Tranmere, but Stevenage might be good opponents for them because they've not been particularly solid at home, and it might only need 1 goal to win the game. From Tranmere's point of view, they've only let in 6 at home all season, and Stevenage have only scored 6 away goals all season. So you sort of mesh it all together. I think the price is really attractive. 1.93, almost evens on Tranmere to win at home to managerless, struggling Stevenage who can't defend on the road. So yeah, that would be my first pick for sure.
Yeah, I don't think I've heard a bigger expected goals than 4.9. There can't be.
It's remarkable. And Rochdale are good going forward, but they're not one of the leading lights in that division. So yeah, I think Tranmere will be strong there. The other one I've picked out here is in the Championship. It's along the lines of looking at a favourite and thinking, you're too short to back here, but can I couple it up with a goals angle? And for me, Swansea are a good one to do that with because they win a lot of games 2-0 at home, especially. Give very little away. I think they've had clean sheets in 6 of 9 home games. They control matches. They basically defend by keeping hold of the ball under Russell Martin, and they could leave Reading chasing shadows in this game. Reading got a very experienced team. Basically, it's like a sort of Premier League dumping ground at the moment for the over 30s Reading. And I just think they might get run off the park by a vibrant Swansea team that's got good players in form. Joel Pirot up front looks a real handful to me. Patterson, excellent. Other players in good nick as well. So yeah, I'm looking at Swansea here. Reading lost at home to Sheffield United in midweek. Only had 6 shots against them on home turf. They've lost 5 of their last 7, the Royals as well. 6 of 9 away games they've lost. So yeah, Swansea to win and under 4.5 goals, 1.97. It's another nice little price. If you fancy Swansea to win, there's a very strong possibility that it'll be under 5 goals in the game. So yeah, I just think 2 value bets there.
Yeah, so 1.97 is Swansea and under 4.5 against Reading, and Tranmere to beat Stevenage at 1.93. Like I said, Adrian, 2 good prices. On to you, Mark. Now, I was a bit surprised and taken back by your selection here, and everyone will remember the Barcelona Benfica during the week. How that chance was missed at the end is beyond me. But despite everything with Barcelona at the moment, you kind of like the price here. And again, we're all about price on this podcast.
Absolutely, that's the most important number we talk about. Really, is the odds, and I just feel Barcelona are a little bit too big to ignore. Really, when they go to Villarreal on Saturday night, there have been signs of progress under Xavi, small signs, small steps, but I felt they were good enough to beat Benfica in midweek. They didn't. They created the better opportunities, bar that glaring miss. Crucially as well, Ousmane Dembele came off the bench, and I think he made a nice impact as well, a real needed impact, a bit of pace, a bit of trickery, a bit of directness to their play, which they were missing beforehand. And just having him or Ansu Fati available is key, really. And him, whether he'll start or not, I'm not sure, but just having him available is big. But we're starting to see Barcelona play a bit more like Barcelona. It wasn't just possession for possession's sake either. They were quite penetrable with it. But yeah, I look at the market, and they're offered here just shy of even money off the +0 Asian handicap. As we know, is the same as the draw no bet. So if the game ends all square, we get our cash back. And I think there's a few facts and stats which presents quite a strong case, really, for suggesting that Barcelona probably deserve to be slightly shorter in the market than they are. They're 4 points above Villarreal in the table. They've only lost 3 La Liga games so far this season. The Clásico at home, Atletico away from home, and Rayo Vallecano, who are the surprise package of the season, sitting in 6th, and that was away from home. Rayo have been superb at Vallecas this season. Villarreal have only won 3 La Liga games this season, 2 of which were against teams in the relegation zone. So they've won once in 11 against teams outside of the bottom 3. They come here after that dispiriting Champions League defeat against Man United, which has put them in a difficult position in the pool because they've got to go to Atalanta and avoid defeat on the final day. And they're missing a few key players as well. Still no Gerard Moreno. We've seen how badly they've missed him in the final third in terms of converting their opportunities, particularly you look at the Man United game at Old Trafford. Chukwueze, Paco Alcácer, both major doubts as well. So that's 3 sort of key forwards absent. They're ranked 7th on expected points. Barcelona are actually ranked 1st for expected points, which is quite surprising. And odds-wise too, Barca went to Villarreal in April and were 1.7. They're 2.68 here. It's a huge difference. And of course, Messi being absent is a big driver of that, but no Griezmann as well. But Villarreal are also a weaker team on paper than the team that played in April as well. So it kind of balances itself out slightly. And also Villarreal under Unai Emery, they've won just once against top 6 teams in La Liga. So I don't expect Barcelona to lose. So therefore, I think the draw no bet, the Asian handicap angle is worth a play, particularly at the price.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that, particularly given the gulf in April's game, 2.68 or whatever the price was with Barcelona. So we're going to lock that in at 1.93. We'll wait for you. We'll give it a sec because I know your other European bet is your best bet, Mark. So just to do a bet recap for those that are coming late to the podcast. So Chelsea and under 4.5 goals against Manchester United. That's at 1.98. The guys were in agreement again. Man City and under 4.5. A little bit of a less play at 1.83. Leicester versus Watford. Both teams to score 1.74. And in Brighton versus Leeds, I reluctantly went with both teams to score 1.81. And then we have EFL Bets with Tranmere and Swansea under 4.5, and then Mark with Barcelona. So best bets. Go to you, Adrian, and it's another EFL play. And you normally like goals, but you're like in in fairness, you have a few boring games in you, and you're going back to the under.
Well, last season when I was in pretty better form, I guess, last season across the EFL. It was the championship unders it was cha-ching. Every time we went championship unders, it was great. But yeah, that was in empty stadiums, and I feel that definitely had an impact. We've not got that now, but the game I've picked out is one that I think screams caginess, and that's a relegation 6-pointer at London Road. Peterborough United against Barnsley. Is huge for both teams. They're really, really struggling. Peterborough were battered by Blackburn in midweek. Their away form's been horrendous. Darren Ferguson subbed off 2 centre-halves at half-time in that game, which tells you what he felt about that. So it'd be very interesting to see the starting 11 here. But one thing I can promise you is that there will be a focus on on having a clean sheet mentality and defending properly as a team. That team would have had a rocket from Darren Ferguson, and they will be primed and ready for this. And certainly going in with a we're not going to be beaten, we're not going to be breached mentality. Posh games this season, 12 of 19, and 1 in the last 5 have gone overs. Have gone unders. I'll start that again. 12 of 19 Peterborough games have gone. They've scored 1 goal or 0 goals. So they're not used to scoring prolifically like they did in Leagues 1 and League 2. Flip it around to Barnsley. Wait for this. They've scored a maximum of 1 goal in 16 of 19 matches, Barnsley. So only scored 2 or more in 3. So these are 2 teams that don't score a lot of goals. Barnsley have got a new manager, Poya Ashbagi, and a tame start. They were beaten by Swansea in midweek. It was a game of very few chances, but neither team really had many efforts on goal. Barnsley had 20% possession, which is very, very tame. So I think that new manager has set his stall out as well to build from the back. Let's try and be solid and not give too much away. So yeah, for me, it just screams really edgy, really tight, low scoring game. Peterborough against Barnsley, under 2.5 goals, 1.88. I was thinking the line might be under 2.25 here, but it's not. 1.88 is a big enough price for me to dive in on that one.
Yeah, it's hard to argue that's a brilliant case on the underside of things. Mark, for you, it's Serie A again and goals, but I love listening to this every week, your Serie A angle, so feel free to take as long as you need on this angle before telling us your
Yeah, it's becoming quite a weekly occurrence now, isn't it? The check-in on goals in Italy, and it continues to deliver, really. 3.1 goals per game. For me, it's Europe's most entertaining league, not just in terms of goals, but in terms of what we actually see on the field. Both teams often will look to try and attack each other. I think we've only got 2 or 3 maybe defensively minded sides in the league, and the match I'm focusing on is on Saturday between Sampdoria and Hellas Verona. Both teams like to play on the front foot, so I'm expecting a high-scoring game. I'm just over the moon, really. We can get over 2.5 goals at 185. I think it's a really, really nice price. It's a bet that's landed in 20 of their combined 27 games in Serie A this season. Samp's matches have averaged 3.23 goals. Verona's 3.77. 14 of those 27 are actually on over 3.5. They've scored in 22 of those 27, and they've managed just 5 clean sheets in those 27 games as well. For Sampdoria, they got a really important win last weekend away at Salernitana. They're back at the Marasivo, which is where they tend to do their best work. Certainly, they've been great fun to follow for quite some time. Go back to the beginning of last season. They've scored in 21 of the last 26 home games, just 4 clean sheets, though, 73% hit rate for over 2.5 goals. And they're playing a Verona team who've been, or are starting to be, one of Italy's real surprise packages this season, under Igor Tudor, who's really sort of turned things around there, playing a carefree, attack-minded style, consistent results, bloodying the nose of bigger teams as well. And if you look over the past 10 games, they've only collected 2 points fewer than Inter or Atalanta, and nobody has scored more goals than Verona's 24 in the last 10 as well. So they'll fancy their prospects of going here and getting a result. I really wouldn't be surprised if they scored twice or more themselves. But Sampdoria are always good for a goal and always good to give up a couple themselves. So, yeah, it should be good fun. I think both teams will fancy their chances, and that always lends itself to a high-scoring game.
Mark, can I just jump in with a quick question? You might not know the answer. To who do we credit this massive shift in the style of Italian football? Because, as you know, for as long as we've all lived, it's been known for being ultra defensive, cautious. Was it Atalanta's emergence that will play in that sort of brand of attacking football that changed things? Because it's quite the gear change, isn't it, for this batch of coaches to be going the opposite of what they were brought up on, really?
Yeah, I think there's more of a European continental influence here, whereas Italy, the younger coaches coming through, there was a big investment in the younger coaches probably 5 to 10 years or so ago, and they would have studied what's been going on in the Bundesliga, the Premier League, and so on, and realised that they need to get better because Italy had been sort of struggling, particularly in European competition, and they wanted to try and find a way and a route back in. And certainly you've seen an influx of younger coaches coming through with different ideas, more attack-minded ideas. And too often it's kind of proven their downfall actually in the continental competitions, because they've probably been a little bit too open, a little bit too easy to play against when they've come up against the bigger teams. But certainly domestically, it's been fantastic fun. Some of these coaches are getting picked up by European teams now as well. But yeah, I mean, Gasperini at Atalanta probably is the godfather, if you like, for sort of imprinting an attack-minded football on the league. But others will sort of take a similar approach, but others are sort of taking it a bit more sort of tempered, pragmatically. But even still, I think off the top of my head, Udinese would certainly be playing a more pragmatic defensive style. But Venezia, newly promoted team, but there's very few really. And I think Shevchenko coming into Genoa at the moment now as well was actually stunk the place out on Monday night when they went to take on Verona in his first game. But there's hopes that he might sort of get his team playing attack-minded football too. But yeah, I think it's been a shift which has probably been seen from the continent first and trying to sort of brought across to Italy, and realise that's probably now the modern day to play football.
Spot on. That's excellent, Mark. Brilliant answer. Sampdoria versus Verona. It's over 2.5 goals, and for for Adrian's best bet, it's under 2.5 goals in Peterborough versus Barnsley. That's it. Really enjoyed my debut on the podcast, guys. Very easy to go over yourself, Adrian and Mark. So really appreciate you having me on. Insights.matchbook.com if you want a full recap of those bets. Will be available a couple hours post recording, and do subscribe to our YouTube channel for free. We'd really appreciate it. That's it. We'll see you next time on the Matchbook Football Podcast when Sully will be back next week. Till then, take care.